Question 656. When an appraiser looks at income from a neighborhood's rental properties for its highest and best use, the income being analyzed is A. Economic rent, B. Maximum rent, C. Developed rent, with broker's commission subtracted, D. High rent. Correct answer is A. Economic rent. Economic rent, or market rent, is the estimated rent a property could command in the open market based on current supply and demand for comparable properties in the neighborhood. It reflects the property's potential earning capacity if leased at prevailing market rates. When determining the highest and best use for income purposes, appraisers consider the realistic income the property can generate under optimal market conditions. While an appraiser might consider the upper limits of rental rates, the focus is on what is economically feasible and sustainable in the market. Not necessarily the absolute highest rent that could theoretically be charged. High rent is too general. The appraiser needs to analyze the typical and supportable rental rates in the market. Developed rent isn't a standard appraisal term in this context. In appraising a property's highest and best use via the income capitalization approach, the appraiser analyzes the economic rent of comparable neighborhood rentals. Economic rent represents the property's potential market-based income, reflecting what it could realistically earn in the current rental market. Question 657. By law, federal deposit insurance must cover A. Bank, B. Federally chartered savings and loans, C. State chartered savings and loans, D. Both A and B. Correct answer is D. Both A and B. Federal deposit insurance, primarily through the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, FDIC, is mandated by law to cover A. Banks, all national banks, state banks that are members of the Federal Reserve System, and most state-chartered banks are required to have FDIC insurance. B. Federally chartered savings and loans. These institutions are also required to be insured by a Federal Deposit Insurance Fund, typically the FDIC, though historically, they were insured by the FSLIC before its merger with the FDIC. While C. State-chartered savings and loans may also be covered by federal deposit insurance, it is not a strict requirement by law that all of them must be. They have the option to be insured by the FDIC if they meet the requirements. Therefore, the entities that must be covered by federal deposit insurance by law are federally chartered banks and federally chartered savings and loans. Question 658. A property owner and broker sign an agreement for the owner to pay the broker a commission if the broker uses due diligence to procure a ready, willing and able buyer. This agreement is an example of A unilateral executory contract, B. Bilateral executory contract, C. Bilateral executed contract, D. No contract has been formed. Correct answer is B. Bilateral executory contract. The act of the broker signing the listing agreement and promising to use due diligence to procure a ready, willing, and able buyer establishes a reciprocal obligation. The owner promises to pay a commission if the broker procures a suitable buyer. By entering into the agreement and promising due diligence, the broker is committing to make reasonable efforts to find a buyer. This creates a binding obligation on the broker's part, even if the specific outcome, finding a buyer, isn't guaranteed. Since both the owner and the broker are undertaking obligations, the owner to pay upon success, the broker to use due diligence, it fits the definition of a bilateral contract. And because the core obligations, finding a buyer and paying the commission, have not yet been fulfilled, it is executory. Question 659. Which of the following would be considered incurable functional obsolescence in a department store? A. Window displays that are uninviting, B. Bad lighting, C. Cheap building materials, D. Discordant music playing in the elevator. Correct answer is C. Cheap building materials. Incurable functional obsolescence refers to a loss in a property's value due to outdated or inefficient features that are either impossible or economically unfeasible to correct. Considering this definition in the context of a department store, the most likely example of incurable functional obsolescence among the options is cheap building materials. If the department store was constructed using inherently low-quality materials that are now deteriorating or require excessive maintenance, this would be a fundamental flaw in the building's structure. Rectifying this would likely involve significant and cost-prohibitive reconstruction, making it practically incurable from an economic standpoint. Window displays that are uninviting can be easily and inexpensively changed or updated to attract customers. Lighting can be replaced or improved relatively easily with modern fixtures. Discordant music playing in the elevator is a minor issue that can be fixed by changing the music source or speakers. Therefore, cheap building materials represent a fundamental and costly defect that would be the most likely example of incurable functional obsolescence in a department store. Question 660. In a graduated payment mortgage, GPM, partially deferred payments on the principal loan amount are A. Made at the start of the term with the payments decreasing as the loan matures, B. Made at the start of the term with the payment increasing as the loan matures, C. Deferred until the end of the term, D. Dependent on the rise and fall of the prime rate. Correct answer is B. Made at the start of the term with the payment increasing as the loan matures. A graduated payment mortgage, GPM, is structured with lower monthly payments at the beginning of the loan term. These initial payments are often insufficient to cover the accruing interest, leading to negative amortization, where the unpaid interest is added to the principal balance. To compensate for these lower initial payments and the deferred interest, the monthly payments are scheduled to increase gradually over a predetermined period, typically 5 to 10 years. After this graduation period, the payments usually level off for the remainder of the loan term. This loan is appropriate for buyers who are expecting to earn more in the future when then can make larger payments. Question 661. The conforming loan limit for California counties is A. $33,000, B. $100,000, C. $417,000, D. There are no limits on conforming loans. Correct answer is C. $417,000. The conforming loan limit for California counties in 2025 is not a single statewide figure. It varies depending on the specific county. For most counties in California, the standard conforming loan limit for a single-family home is $806,500. However, in higher-cost areas, such as Los Angeles, San Francisco, and San Diego counties, the conforming loan limits are higher, reaching $1,209,750 for a single-family home in some of these counties. Therefore, options A, B, and D are incorrect. Option C, $417,000, was a conforming loan limit from many years ago and is no longer accurate for California in 2025. The correct answer is that the conforming loan limit varies by county in California, with a general limit of $806,500 for most areas and higher limits up to $1,209,750 in high-cost areas. Since this isn't directly reflected in the multiple-choice answers, the closest understanding would be that there isn't a single limit, making D. There are no limits on conforming loans partially true in the sense of a singular statewide limit, but misleading as limits do exist and are county-specific. Given the provided options, and the significant increase in conforming loan limits since $417,000, none of the provided dollar amounts accurately represent the current conforming loan limits across all California counties. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are restricted by law to purchasing single-family mortgages with origination balances below a specific amount, known as the conforming loan limit. Loans above this limit are known as jumbo loans. Question 662. Someone who would be judged to be incompetent may still be bound by signing a contract for A. Real property with a value below $1,000, B. Anything besides real estate, C. Real property of any value, D. Necessaries. Correct answer is D. Necessaries. Necessaries refers to essential goods and services that a person needs to survive, such as food, shelter, clothing, and medical care. The law recognizes that even someone who is incompetent has a basic right to obtain these necessities. Therefore, even if a person is judged incompetent, they might still be bound by a contract for necessities if the following conditions are met. 1. The contract was for essential goods or services. 2. The price charged was fair and reasonable. 3. The seller was unaware of the person's incompetence. In such cases, the court might reason that the contract is necessary to protect the well-being of the incompetent person. The value of the real property is not the determining factor in whether an incompetent person is bound by the contract. The key issue is their legal capacity at the time of signing. Generally, contracts for real property entered into by someone judged incompetent are voidable or void, regardless of the property's value. Therefore, the exception to the rule that an incompetent person is not bound by contracts is for contracts involving necessaries. Question 663. The ways in which the government acquires title to real estate include: A. Escheat. B. Municipal acquisition. C. Eminent domain. D. Both A and C. Correct answer is D. Both A and C. Eminent domain is the power of the government, federal, state, or local, to take private property for public use, even if the owner does not want to sell. Usually, property acquired by eminent domain is used for needed government buildings, public utilities, or highways. This acquisition requires just compensation to be paid to the owner. This is another form of involuntary acquisition. While municipalities, cities, are governmental entities and can acquire real estate, the term municipal acquisition is broad and doesn't specify the method of acquisition. A municipality could purchase property through a voluntary transaction, receive it as a gift, or acquire it through eminent domain. Therefore, it's not a distinct legal mechanism of government title acquisition in the same way as escheat and eminent domain. Therefore, escheat and eminent domain are specific legal mechanisms by which the government acquires title to real estate. Question 664. The minimum notice period an owner must give his apartment building tenants when the building will be converted to a condominium is: A. 90 days. B. 180 days. C. 6 months. D. There is no minimum notice requirement for such condo conversions. Correct answer is B. 180 days. In California, there are specific notice requirements that a property owner must follow when converting an apartment building to condominiums. According to California law, tenants are generally entitled to 180 days written notice of intention to convert prior to the termination of their tenancy due to the conversion. The owner, converter also has to provide each tenant with the opportunity to buy their apartment when the conversion is finished. Question 665. A wooden roof's highest point is called a: A. Ridge board. B. Top notch. C. Rafter. D. Hoist. Correct answer is A. Ridge board. Rafters are the sloping beams that support the structure of the roof. They run diagonally from the eaves, the lower edge, to the peak. Top notch refer to the V-shaped joint at the peak of a roof where two opposing rafters meet, but it's not the highest point itself. A hoist is a lifting device and wouldn't be part of the permanent structure of the roof. The ridge board is the horizontal board located at the highest point of the roof. It runs along the peak, where the opposing top ends of the rafters meet and are secured.